Okay. What? Let's camera. Switch to camera review. Yes.
Hello, can you hear me?
Yeah. Welcome to Rave Reviews Book Club's newest sensation, Eyes on the Book, another addition to our Rave Waves lineup. I'm your host, Rox Berkey, broadcasting live from Dallas, Texas. During our Rave Waves shows, we promote our members' books via reported commercials or just talk about them. If you would like to get to know how to get your own commercial aired during one of our shows, just visit the Rave Waves tab on the RRBC website for all the details. It's a fantastic way to promote your books. Before we get started, I'd like to remind everyone that September is Leukemia Awareness Month and a great time to become involved in the race to find a cure for this awful disease. Now let's get started. I'm honored to welcome to the show today RRBC author Karl Morgan from sunny, well, a little smoky Chula Vista, California. Welcome, Karl.
Thank you very much, Rox. It's a great pleasure to be here with you guys.
Listeners, if you have any questions or comments for Karl, I will be opening up the floor to those questions or comments throughout the show. Your mics will remain muted until that time. We ask that if you please raise your hand if you'd like to speak. At that time, your mic will be unmuted. You may also access the chat function located at the bottom of your screen to type your questions or comments to us. All right, welcome, Karl. I am so delighted that you're here. We at RBC are so glad to have you with us. So let's introduce you to those who may not really know you. Tell us about the real Karl Morgan, the person away from that keyboard.
Wow, that's a tough one. I think I'm just a regular guy in my mid-60s now, considering retirement one of these days, I don't know, but I'll never stop writing, so that's one thing I know for sure.
Good.
Have 2 wonderful grown kids and 4 grandkids, and life is good. Life is good.
Well, that's awesome. Glad to hear it. Hey, Karl, I know that you are both a controller at your day job and an indie sci-fi fantasy author. And I find in business, storytelling is often used to build a financial business case. Is this part of why you're such a prolific author?
I would say probably yes. I mean, my previous job, I was put on the team to establish a business presence in Brazil, and I had to create the financial and business model for that. I mean, obviously I had a lot of help from the senior executives who wanted it to happen anyway, but in order to go to the board, they had to have the whole package put together. And as you say, being a finance guy, I've been writing reports and trying to justify projects my whole career. But I've always had a thing for writing. I remember earliest when I was in high school, as a very shy, introverted 15, 16-year-old, I wrote a bunch of poetry. And I had one very good English teacher who actually supported me. So that was very, very sweet. But that's probably where it all started.
So you're not saying, though, that your financial reports had a little bit of sci-fi and fantasy in them, are you?
Well, not sci-fi, but in the business world, you do what the bosses want you to do, and
Of course.
they want it to be
The
told.
coronavirus pandemic has restricted movements for everyone around the world. Did it result in you working from home for the first time?
No, the business we're in right now, it's a label printing business. And we have business with hospitals and healthcare companies and pharmacy companies, et cetera. So as well as labels for shipping companies like Amazon and any company who's shipping their products anywhere. So because of that, we stayed open the whole time. Would not have minded staying home more, but no, I had to go to work every day.
So the new challenges that you probably were presented was additional work because you had to fulfill all of these new orders and requirements.
Well, that also, one of my coworkers is older than me, really, and she had a health condition, and so her doctor wanted her to stay home. So she was our first employee on that special, not sure how to call it, like a PTO program for people who have conditions related to, that could be affected by COVID.
Okay.
She was out for probably 2 months, and I ended up doing her job in the interim period. So that way I had extra work.
Well, that was awesome of you to help support her. So the book we're going to talk about today is Karl Prescott and the Riddle of Satan's Cube. This is the latest, I believe, in the Karl Prescott series, which was released recently. Why did you decide on Satan's Cube as Karl's challenge in this book?
Well, I mean, the whole series started out, in the first book, there was really no influence from beyond other than a particular demon who tried to destroy the world. But the story has become more and more complicated, and I ended up, Karl ventures into the prior universe, and things got crazier. In the third book, these bad people created an extra universe, and in this one, I introduced the concept of the cycle of the universes. And there had to be something that made it happen, and the thing that could end the entire cycle of the universe is Satan. Because the first 3 books, there was no Satan. Nobody believed there was one. And then suddenly they found out, oh, there was. But it's one of these things that metastasizes over multiple universes in order to try to undo God's creation.
Satan is always such an interesting character for people to portray. I mean, it's just amazing how that works. I can see why Karl would be, I don't know, ready to rise to the challenge, perhaps. So let me take a pause here and see if anyone in the peanut gallery has some questions for us. All right, let me move on. I know that some of these questions will help spurn the peanut gallery. Oh, wait a minute, we have one from Jan. Jan asks, I have to wonder if all the Karl Prescott books need to be read in order or standalone.
Well, I think it's like any book series. I mean, I try to write them so that at the beginning it brings in a lot of the things that happened in the previous book. But it's like Harry Potter. If you don't watch from the very beginning to the very end, you don't really understand the whole scope of it. But each movie and each book stands on its own, I believe. But to get the real scope of the whole thing, you need to do the whole series.
Yes, this one would be the first in the series of yours that I've actually read, and I wasn't lost. How long did it take you to write the first 3 books in the Karl Prescott series?
Well, I've slowed down recently because of all the constraints at work, but typically I can write 2 to 4 books a year. That's just the way I go.
Wow.
I have a very active imagination, as you can imagine.
So another question at Peanut Gallery that I want to go ahead and slip in now is, after writing all your other books, what brought you to the series, this particular series, Karl Prescott, Karl?
Well, for much of my writing career, I've wanted to write in the young adult fiction genre. In fact, my previous series, The Revolution, I had intended that to be the case. But by the second chapter of the first book, we were dealing with cannibals and chopping people up and trying to eat them. I said, well, that probably isn't a young adult topic. So I just left that as dystopian and went even crazier and crazier to the end. But this one I said, well, I'm really going to try and make something that's not overtly horrible. There's no graphic violence, even though there is violence, but it's not something that you'd be afraid to have a younger person read. And that's why I had this idea that, in a way, I thought it was going to be somewhat Harry Potter-esque, because
Right.
Young kid and he grows in his talents toward the end. But my books are nothing about witchcraft or evil wizards or anything like that. So it's different, but it's that kind of thing. I really wanted to try to broaden my audience if I could.
So Karl, I kind of thought in looking at this particular book, as well as kind of glancing at the other books in the series to see which one I should do next, the series itself seems to be focused on time and space and making good choices, which is, you know, kind of a good young adult focus. Was that your intention?
Yeah, I think in all of my books, I try to talk about how people can make choices, good choices or bad. And if you make too many of the wrong choices, that's really bad. That concept came out years ago in the story called Two Doors. But that's really part of my belief system that, yeah, we all make mistakes. None of us are perfect. But if we keep choosing to make the same bad mistake over and over again, that's not going to end well. So that's the kind of the direction my scripts tend to go.
So the theory of the Karl Prescott series would be what? And that's also a question that's coming from Lena Tanner. So.
Well, I think ultimately it's a story about, as most stories are, love and friendship. And this one is more about the eternity of existence, because I'm not one of these people who believes, well, I'm a person of great faith, but I also have a knowledge of many different religions around the world, and I understand a lot of the things about them that make a lot of sense to me. So I'm a big fan of reincarnation. And I do believe that we move from life to life, and we tend, the phrase I put in the book is a spiritual family bond, is that individual souls will move from life to life. They won't be the same person. They may be totally different. One may be the other's pet, maybe whatever, but those individual souls choose to be together from life to life.
So, you know, in taking a look at the Peanut Gallery again at this point, you've got Jan Sykes who believes in that too. Yvette commented that I've read The Reluctant Prophet and one of the Karl Prescott books and enjoyed both of the stories. You're a great storyteller. So, you know, obviously you have a lot of fans in this Peanut Gallery. Are there more stories planned in the Karl Prescott series, or are we at the end?
I think, well, it's never really hard. The first series I wrote long ago was a sci-fi series. I was done with it, and then a year or so later, I wrote another book. I think the way this one ended is pretty much the end. But I had this idea in my head something called Karl Prescott and the Unexpected Life, where even though he already knows his future, suddenly he's born again and he's a kid again, and it's like trying to figure out what went on. But I don't know that I'm going to go there. But I have other stories not in this series planned. I've been working on some, and we'll see where they go.
So I know that you have a habit of keeping your heroes heroic and your villains evil. Is that why you really write in the sci-fi and fantasy genres?
Probably. I mean, I've always been a huge fan of sci-fi and fantasy my whole life. When I was a kid, there I read all the I can't remember the name of the series anymore off the top of my head, but all these sci-fi books. I was really big into Asimov and others, and so I was always into sci-fi. I'm a big fan and study of cosmology and mechanics and those kind of things. I'm not a scientist, but the stuff just fascinates me. And fantasy is something where you're not tied to things that people can check in a book to see if I'm right or not. You can go beyond the scope of reality and no one's going to complain. Nobody ever said, well, Harry Potter is just a bunch of garbage, because nobody can do that. It's a fantasy, so you say, okay, let's go with it.
And I got to tell you, Yvette seems to agree with you. Fantasy is an awful lot of fun. Now, your RRBC author page shows that you do have several books in this series. Is there one in this series that you are more fond of, or is every one of them, you know, like your child, your favorite?
Well, I love all my stories. I mean, I think of the four here. I think Satan's Cube is interesting, but I also get a little bit of sadness when you think about the end of the story. I think the love triangle that occurred in Demon Queen was probably my favorite story. But like I say, it's like you say with your kids, oh, I hate the little one over there. No, you love them all. And that's kind of the way it is.
So let's go back to the peanut gallery and go through some of the comments and the questions. We've got a really delightfully active group in here today. So Ryan Kent asks, is there a favorite of your series? That favorite child thing.
That's a really tough question. I think, I don't know. I think each new one it stands on its own. I mean, when I was in a dark mood about the future where things could go, really thinking dystopian-like, and I did Revolution, I thought that was a great series, but it was incredibly violent. And when I look at it back on it now, I say, who wrote that? Because I'm not the kind of person who's in for that kind of really, really bad stuff. But that was one of my favorites. And way back to the original, the Dave Brewster and the sci-fi, those were huge too. But yeah, it's hard to pick an individual.
Yeah, it would be hard, especially as many as you have. Sam is in our audience today, and he makes a comment that reincarnation is heavily explored in shamans. So that belief of coming back as another entity is certainly often considered among people and outside of the fantasy realm. Joy has a comment that she has a granddaughter who she believes must be her mother's reincarnation because they always disagree. This could be a fascinating debate, you know, as to when people are reincarnated, how do you come back in? And then we have Nani who comments, oh, there's a love triangle. Sounds like my kind of read.
Yeah, I end up having those in my books more often than I think I would like. Even back to Dave Brewster, there was some in there that was kind of problematic when I think about it now, but that was a long time ago.
So I made an error earlier when I said it was Ryan Kent, and I apologize because it really is Heather Kent. I'm reading the sign-in name, so my humblest apologies, madam.
I did notice Shirley had her hand up some time ago. I don't know if she wanted to ask something then.
Shirley, were you going to type a question in?
Oh, okay, can you hear me?
Yes.
Yes. Thank you, Karl, for noticing that. I think I wanted to know, first I wanted to know how many books did you have in the series? Are there like two types of books in two different series, or is it just one book in a series? And where do you come up with all this stuff?
Uh, well, the Carl Prescott series are 4 books. And the Revolution one before that was for some individual books, but generally I have written in series. But when I write a series, it's usually 3 to 5. And where these things come up from, I'm insane. It's just it. That's
I have to agree with you. It's just amazing what the mind can hold. I mean, we're all so unique and so fascinating individuals, and I'm just in awe of people like you that can just have this stuff in your head and put it out on paper. It's just amazing.
Thank
I
you.
am too, Shirley. I think it's amazing how these people can come up with all of this brilliance. That's what I'm going to call it.
Yes.
Carl.
I don't know how I got into this arena because I certainly didn't have it. I just had something I had to say. That's how I even got into this business of writing.
I think we're all the same, actually, because, all of my stories, they have the point I'm trying to get across. Other people may not even see it or even notice or care, which is fine. But I always have a story I'm trying to tell, something I want people to get out of it, whether they get it or not.
So, Karl, we have a comment from Matt that's really very interesting. That's, who are you publishing through? And are you considering audiobooks? Because I would agree, I didn't see any audios out there on your stories.
Actually, I have a friend who allows me to use her publisher mark, but I'm basically self-published. As far as audio, I've thought about it, but I haven't really, everything I've seen seems pretty expensive, and I unfortunately don't sell a whole lot of books, but I'd be interested in that. I'm just not sure I'm ready to go into that. And just from a cost standpoint, I'm thinking. Well, if somebody has some really good idea how to do it cheap, then I'm all ears.
Oh, there you go. Then we want to kind of go down to another question that came in from, and I lost it. It came in from Linnea. Do you have an overall plot in mind when you are writing your stories, or does it spin from the previous series or from the previous book, or do you just get told by the character where to go?
I think when I start a new story, speaking of an individual book, I have an idea of where I want it to go, but sometimes they go a different way. As far as the series, generally, by the time I finish a book, I have an idea where I want the next one to go. And I may not know what the story is going to be, but I have an idea. So that's kind of the way it goes. I mean, I know when I started my dystopian series, there's a scene in there where this guy who was his family had a huge amount of money and they were all killed off and he was escaping. And that was a character from, what was it? Oh my mind just went completely blank. From a different, totally unrelated. And suddenly that became just a significant part of that next book, even though they're totally unrelated.
Yeah, it is very strange. And even back to the comment that Shirley made, our ideas and where they come from are just amazing. This is just the creativity. Sam's always amazed that multiple books can be written in a year. From his perspective, it takes 2 to 3 years for him to finish one book.
Well, everybody's different. Everybody has different time constraints. Like I say, I'm probably literally insane, so it's okay. But when I get ideas, I just go. When I run out of ideas, I stop. So that's just the way my brain works.
Well, and I like Nani's comment that she added in, hey, we can do anything we put our minds into doing. And I totally agree with that. There's just no exception there. Okay, so, I found it very interesting to learn that you are a proud lifetime member of RRBC. What has that experience been like for you during your tenure with the organization?
Well, when I found the book club, I was kind of just going on my own and having very limited success. And I know I needed help. and I know I needed a community around me because, frankly, my family hasn't. I mean, while they are proud that I write books, I don't know if they ever read them. But I needed to get, other people who are like me, who are looking for a community where we can share what we know and learn to grow and get our word out. And that's why I found you guys, and it's been great every minute. So I've enjoyed it.
Yeah, I can agree with that. Being a new member, it's been the best place I have found. So how has this journey, the way you came into this community, impacted your writing? Has it made you write even faster? Is that what kind of spurns you into multiple books a year?
No, I think the writing, the speed was always me, but just being able to get more eyes on what I'm doing and to get more feedback is what's very important, and to help get my concepts and my ideas out to people. It's very, very important. That's why, as Naniala says, you help others, they'll help you. So I figure if I can support all you guys and you support me, then we'll all do better. And that's the reason I'm here.
Well, I'm right there with you. Now, obviously, you're considered a dedicated and loyal member of RRBC. Nani's applauding in the background for your lifetime membership. Other people are going, way to go, that's really great. So what do you think makes a good member of this amazing club? What does it take?
Attention. I mean, you have to care. I mean, I use a lot of naughty words in my day-to-day, but I won't use them today. But you have to really put the effort into it and pay attention to what's going on and be as supportive of others as you want them to be supportive of you. And that's all I do. I mean, if I can do something to help the club, I do it. And if I need the club's help, they help me. So it's a symbiotic relationship, and that's wonderful. That's what it's all about. It's like a group of friends who all are supporting each other to make the best of this thing we love, which is writing.
You say it so well and so easy. That's wonderful. So I know that we have a couple of other comments in the window. Heather Kent makes an interesting comment. Have you ever tried to present your books at Comic-Cons or conventions like that because of the genres?
I've done a few things at local bookstores that didn't really amount to much. And I have applied for a few award things, those, and sometimes they mean something, sometimes they don't. Outside of that, no. I mean, like I say, I work full time. I do this during off time, and it's not like I have a lot of this. This isn't my career yet. Depending on how things go, my company was just acquired by another company, and who knows what's going to happen next. Maybe this will be my full-time job soon. I don't know. But right now, it's just, I know it's...
Yet comment, because, I think that a lot of us would like to take on writing full-time, and it takes a village like this to support us, to help us get there, as well as awesome writing capabilities and abilities. So that's awesome. So Karl, Sam makes a comment in the window that he's looking for tried and true strategies, and maybe part of the RRBC club will help solidify those for him.
Yeah, that's why I think why we're all here. We all hope that the additional exposure we get from the club and the things we learn will help us be better writers and to build a larger tribe of readers. That's why we're all here.
Yep, and that's perfect. Right after the recent festival that we had and all the learning that we were able to take advantage of, it's awesome. So I kind of have a final question. I want you to think about it, because I think your response will be very impactful for everyone. So what writing or life advice do you feel you can share with all our listeners?
Wow, that's a big question.
I know.
just the most important thing is to have faith in yourself and trust your judgment and follow your dreams, do the things that you think are the most important, because that's the best you can be. Just do the best you can. Some people will hate you for it, other people will adore you for it. And you can't control how other people are going to feel about what we do anytime, ever. So just do your very best, do it with the right intentions, and good news will follow.
And you're getting a lot of commentary from that statement from the window. Jan loves it. Follow your dreams. Linnea says, great advice. Yvette is saying, well said. See, I knew that you would answer that really well.
Thank you.
So, you know, I can see that we're close to being out of time, and I want to thank you so much, Karl, for visiting with us today and helping us to make today's Eyes on the Book an extra special show.
Thank you very much, Rox.
Before we go, though, I have two new books that I hadn't seen before that I want to share with you and that you should keep your eyes on. The first is Lodestone by Wendy Scott, which looks like a really exciting read. And the second one is Malachi Roostmaster by Pamela Canepa. So these are two that I think need to be on your writing list along with the Karl Prescott series.
I couldn't agree more.
Rox, before we go, Matt wanted to know, Karl, if you've donated any of your books to libraries.
That's something I've been wanting to do. I just haven't done it. I mean, I've got obviously tons of copies of books, but I don't know. I should, I just haven't.
Okay.
And that's a great comment. I found, especially right now, during the pandemic, there's a lot of requests for donating to libraries. So that and what I call retirement communities, that may be a good place. If you do have a lot of books and you're ready to go ahead and donate some, might be good considerations right in your own community. Good comment, Matt. So both of the titles that I want you to keep your eyes on are in the RRBC catalog, and we suggest you pick up copies from Amazon or any other online retail where books are sold legally. Audience, remember, if you miss a live show, you can find each and every episode in the archives on the RRBC site. I'm your host, Rox Berkey, thanking you for joining Karl and myself for another segment of Rave Waves, where all things literary are our passion. Until next time, keep reading, keep your eyes on the book, on today's books. Stay safe, stay home, and remember to vote. Bye-bye for now.
Bye, everybody.
Thank you for joining. Y'all are great. Thank you, Marion.